Coach Dorrell, there were 72 scrimmage plays again, Coach, without special teams.
Well, that's good. We got the number we needed. I try to keep it within 60 and 70 plays. We did have some live work in special teams, which I think was critical for our returners to feel what that looks like. Most of the time, that's not. But it was good. A lot of good work again, doing situational football. Definitely some things we got to clean up on both sides. At this point in camp, with all the information that's in, it's hard to have all of that information up and ready for our players to do all at one time. And I thought today they did a pretty good job, but I think there was a little bit in some situations where it's a lot of information that we could have performed a little bit better. But I think our health is good. That was one thing that I think was important for me, getting through this day. Being 2 weeks from today is when we're playing, and there were no significant injuries or anything like that. So we got about 10 practices left to get ourselves ready before the first game, and we should be ready in those 10 practices.
Okay, first question's from Justin Guerrero.
Coach, we talked to Daniel and Dimitri just a moment ago, and both of them were kind of ringing the same bell. The word sluggish was used to kind of describe how the offense performed today. Daniel had said maybe things started off a bit slow for the offensive unit. Just wondering if you could maybe expand on that a little bit and tell us what you saw from the offense today.
Just I think the efficiency was a little bit different. I mean, there was a few big plays that you saw in the course of the scrimmage. I would say the consistency and the efficiency was a little bit up and down. But it was one of those days where I felt the defense stepped up. They did a nice job in really containing the offense, and I feel great as a head coach knowing that we have a defense that's gotten better to do those types of things, and building off the success that they had late in the season last year. So it's good to know that the defense is had a pretty good solid day. Offensively, we just got to continue to get those guys, young players, playing well, and it's two young quarterbacks that are playing for the first time and trying to get their efficiency levels higher. So it's a good body of work that I think the offense needs to continue to work on.
Brian Howell.
Hey, Coach, I have a couple special teams questions for you. I was curious, first off, if you've identified who might be the returners for you and how those guys are looking. And then also, if you can kind of talk about the kicking game with James and Josh Watts.
James and Josh have done really well. James is healthy from the surgery. Both these guys have had some issues in the past, but I think they're overcoming those things really well. But both James and Josh, I think, are doing really well. The punts are looking great from Josh's standpoint, and James has been pretty much automatic with all of his stuff in the field goal ranges, and then he is doing some kickoffs for us as well. So he looks good. His leg looks strong, and those things are we feel good about what those two guys will bring for us going into the season. Our returners, we got about 4 or 5 guys that we've been rotating back there, and they all had turns today. Chris Carpenter, the young freshman, he's a very I'd say electric type of player. Tough kid. Don't judge him by his size. He's not. He plays bigger than his size, and I like that about him. So he had a couple of nice returns. Dimitri Stanley had a couple of nice returns. I think Maurice Bell also had a couple of nice returns in there too. So Jared Broussard had some. So we kind of spread it around to all those guys. We haven't named a starter yet, Brian, but we feel like we have a good stable of guys to use.
Adam Munster Tiger.
Hi, Coach. You mentioned that there were a couple big plays out there. The defense played well. Which individual players really flashed out there today during the scrimmage?
The guys that flash, well, I mean, a couple, Jaron Mangum had a couple TD runs today. I think he did a nice job in the run game. Levante Chenault had a couple of nice plays. Chris Carpenter had a couple of nice plays. Dimitri Stanley had a couple of nice plays. So, it was spread out pretty good. Brady Russell had a nice couple of catches today and had some runs after. So they are all doing a really nice job. It's just, to me, the frustrating part as an offensive coach, not that I'm frustrated about it, but it's like I said earlier, that the level of consistency. You had the good moments. You know what I mean, Adam? It was really good plays, but then you sense the level of just the consistency level and efficiency of the offense needs to improve.
And Neil Welk.
Hey, Carl, just wanted to know real quick. I know when you came into camp, you said that you really liked what you saw from your defensive line. Has that front seven as a whole, has it progressed as well as you thought it would to this point?
It has. It really has, Neil. I am excited about our experience and our depth at our D line. You know, the good young players that have stepped up and have really honed in on shaping up their skills and development have really picked up the pace. And I think Chris Wilson has done a tremendous job with those guys, bringing those guys where they're, you know, we're probably a good 2 teams of depth of guys that can rotate and play and try to keep us fresh throughout the course of the game. So, yeah, very pleased with the D line, and linebackers have done well. So, but it all starts up front. You know, I like what those guys have been doing, you know, so far.
Ryan Howell.
Hey, Coach, you guys are supposed to play a game 2 weeks from today. I don't know when you'll tell us, but I'm curious how close you are to naming a starting quarterback and when you feel like you have to have that starter in place for you to be able to prepare for UCLA.
Pretty soon here, Brian. Pretty soon. You know, we wanted to get a couple good weeks of, you know, get some evaluations on everyone that's involved here, and you know, so we're definitely thinking sometime this week we'll probably come out with some announcement, but it is close. It's coming soon.
Carl has time for one more. It's Justin Guerrero. So ask your question fast, Justin.
Coach, I know you've been asked this a number of times since you guys started camp, but today after your second scrimmage, are you starting to see a little bit more visibility in any sense in terms of those position battles? Guys starting to separate themselves a little bit more in terms of the ones versus the twos?
You know, that's still pretty close, Justin. I like how that depth is. You know, we're trying to make our twos to perform at a standard just like our ones, and they are rising and accepting the challenge of doing those things. So, and that's not at every position, Justin. I mean, I'm just saying most positions there are pretty close, but I'm very pleased with where our twos are. You know, they're you know, we talked about the defensive line. We feel like there's good depth there. You know, same thing in the offensive line. There's some guys in our twos that I think are capable players that can help us, you know, in a pinch if we need to. You know, the skill positions offensively, you know, there are a number of guys that are in the rotation, and the same thing in the back end in the secondary. We got some youth in the secondary with guys that are talented, but you know, there's some probably more depth now this year than it was last year. So nothing's really kind of just really opened up in terms of really created the great separation, Justin. It's still pretty close, but it's a good thing. It's a good close, not because I think the core of our program has gotten better.